Hello and welcome to today's video on how to revise and, bizarrely, how to eat an elephant. And this is my metaphor for how you should revise. Revision looks impossible. You've got huge GCSEs with loads to remember. And this is a metaphor, and it means this. Eat your elephant one bite at a time. Stop worrying about the size of the elephant and just turn your revision into little chunks. Let me show you what I mean. In 1954, Roger Bannister, a doctor, broke the 4-minute mile barrier to create a new world record. This was a record that people thought was humanly impossible. More people have climbed Everest than have run a 4-minute mile. And Everest was also first climbed in 1954. So what did Roger Bannister do that was like your revision, that was like eating an elephant? Well, because he was a doctor, he could only train in his lunchtime. And so basically he had 45 minutes to train. And this was at a time when you were supposed to be running 80 to 100 miles a week. There was no way he could do that. But he still ran a world record. And the reason is he applied himself brilliantly in small chunks. And that's what you need to do. Small chunks are like small bites of the elephant. That's quite a big bite, isn't it? But anyway, take the small bites and you'll succeed. Let me show you a little bit more. This is me. There I am, Dominic Sales. In 2008, I rode a marathon. And this is my world ranking. 106th in the world. I know. Who knew that Mr. Sales was that talented? And there was my time, 2 hours 55 minutes, which is about 30 minutes outside the world record. Okay, I know you are suitably amazed and you're saying, what? Roger who? It's Mr. Sales. But no, the point is not me. The point is I did that in the same way that Roger Bannister did. I didn't have time to train. And so even though I was running a marathon, which is 42,000 metres or 26 miles, my training sessions were all like Roger Bannister's. They were 45 minutes long. And this principle holds true of revision. Now, this is fantastic for you because here is my YouTube channel, and I'm here to tell you what this shows us about why students get stressed. This is why. These are my views throughout the year. Look, there were over 2 million of them last year. And what happens the night before each exam? Boom! All the students start revising the night before the exam. 144,000 views the night before the exam. That's 20% of my whole views were basically done the night before each paper. Well, that's why students do badly. They think the elephant is massive, so they don't revise properly, and then they cram everything in the night before. This is really inefficient for you. The fact that you're watching this video shows you're not going to be one of these students. It proves that you're going to do well. And when you start eating into that elephant, my videos are a bite. But I'm not just talking about English, I'm talking about every kind of revision you do. Now, let's first bust some myths about what good revision looks like. Myth busting number 1. Highlighting your notes or your book is not a way to remember things. It looks beautiful and students color code them and the colors mean something, but it's a very poor way to improve your memory. So you can do it if you want, but it won't help you learn stuff. So get rid of the highlighter as a way of learning. Secondly, as we have just seen, most students think that cramming the night before or even the week before the exam is the best way to go. It isn't. You just end up exhausted and you don't remember that much of what you've learned. This is a terrible way to revise and it is very stressful. Myth number 3. If you reread your stuff, you will please the teacher who thinks you're revising really well. Now, you will please the teacher because you're putting in lots of hard work, and you will please your mind because it's working hard, but this is a terrible way to revise. Reading through your stuff doesn't help you learn much of it at all. So what do you have to do? Well, you have to transform that elephant. In other words, whatever you're revising, you have to transform into something else. So here is my handy mnemonic, Meccano. Make things out of Meccano. You probably don't know what Meccano is, but never mind. And what does my Meccano mnemonic stand for? Well, maps are the first thing. You need to make mind maps. And then you need to make revision cards. That's the CA of Meccano. And then finally, you need to make notes on what you have learned. And I hope you can see I've deliberately placed my explanations in a different order. Now, cognitive scientists call this a desirable difficulty. So when you read the notes, you've got to link that to notes, and cards, you've got to link to cards, and so on. But these three things, these three ways of working, will help you transform what you need to study into another form. And when you do that, you just remember lots more. And even better, you reduce all that reading that you had to just a few things, and it's much easier to revise them as well as to remember them. Now, I'm going to take you a little bit deeper into cognitive science, and this is astonishing. I really wish that I'd known this when I was your age. Okay, what does this graph show? This is the forgetting curve, which I'll explain. And what it means is, when you're revising, instead of cramming, it's much better to take a little bite of your revision, a little bite of your elephant, and do some the day after you've learnt it in school, then a week later go back to it, and then go back to it a month later. Well, why does that work? Well, this graph will tell you. So imagine you're in a lesson and you've paid attention all the way through. You remember 100% of what you've been taught. Well, this line here shows how you gradually forget it. So after 60 days, you will have forgotten 95% of what you learnt in that lesson. Okay, and you can test that. Ask yourself, what did you learn in your physics lesson last week? And you'll probably forget quite a bit of it. However, if a day or so later you revise it again, when it's still 90% in your memory, look what happens. You forget much more slowly. So after 60 days, you remembered still about 45%. Okay, now, if you revise it a week later, which is 10 days after you first did it, look how much more, here it is. Look how much more slowly you forget. So at the end of 60 days, you still remember just about 79%. Now, this is really powerful because it means that instead of spending an hour revising something, I'm much better just spending 10 minutes on it the first day, then 10 minutes on that same topic a day later, then 10 minutes on that topic 10 days later. And although I'm spending just a little bit of time each time, because I'm increasing the gaps, I forget less. And then on the fourth reminder, you're probably on about a month in between here, aren't you? Between looking at it again. Now, that is fabulous, but for it to work, you need to start revising now. Otherwise, you won't keep having these month gaps. And this is why cramming doesn't work, because there you are, you've come the night before and you've tried to learn it, and you forget it really quickly. And also, you can't remember everything that you've done the night before, so you will remember even less. But if you've started your revision in 10 or 20 minute chunks months before, you will get much, much higher marks because you'll just remember more. And that to me is astonishing. Right, how else should you revise apart from Meccano? Well, you should do exam questions and you should mark them yourself. This is the most painful way to revise because you will hate sitting down to do exam papers. But don't do whole exam papers at a time. Do key questions because your revision needs to be about 20 minutes long and I will show you why a bit later. So you're aiming for 20-minute chunks, and that's what I mean by doing exam questions. Do the exam question, then mark it, then take a break, and then come back. So this is eating the elephant one step at a time. It will get you much, much higher marks. If you want to know why that works, I will show you in the rest of the video. Here we go. So the science of the brain is really, really interesting. We now know how the brain learns. When I was young, we didn't know that. I was just told I had to work really hard, and I didn't. So I did okay, but nowhere near as well as I should have done. So what I'm going to give you now comes from the Learning Scientists, and you can find them at thelearningscientist.org. And there are 6 ways that you can learn, and I'm going to give you 4 of the most important. So here we come. The first, sorry, that's just to prove that these are real scientists. I haven't made them up. The first thing they talk about is space practice, which I've just demonstrated to you with that forgetting curve. And you want to increase the space between revising stuff. The next thing they tell you is that forgetting is a good thing. So when you forget things and then you revise them again, your brain makes stronger neural pathways, makes stronger connections, makes stronger memories, and you will just remember more because you've given yourself that gap in which to forget. The next thing that they ask you to do is retrieval practice. So without looking at your notes, write down what you can remember, or draw a picture of what you can remember, and then check it against what you wrote in your original notes. And this retrieval practice will help you remember even better. Another way to do retrieval practice that they recommend, obviously, is the past paper questions. And when you get good at this, you can ignore most of the questions on the exam paper because you'll know how to do them, and then you just focus on the few that you need. You can also make flashcards. These work really, really well, especially as you can sort them into piles. And so it's really easy to have a pile that you think, all right, this pile I've got to revise in a day, this pile I've got to revise in 10 days, and this pile I've got to revise in 3 weeks or a month. It's a really good way to stay on top of your revision by having these flashcards. And another way is when you go back and check your class materials to see if you've actually remembered. But obviously, if you made your flashcards properly in the first place, they already cover whatever was in your class materials. Okay, so hopefully that makes revision really easy for you, but the science isn't done yet. We now leave retrieval practice and we're going to look at interleaving. Now, do you remember I told you that the optimum time for revision is just 20 minutes? And what interleaving says is, let's say I've got to revise biology. I'm not going to revise 3 lots of biology in 3 different chunks. Oh no. That is apparently too easy for the brain and it won't start to remember stuff. You have to make it a little bit difficult for your brain, and you do that by doing, well, I'll do 20 minutes of biology, and then 20 minutes of maths, and then 20 minutes of history. And because these are topics which don't normally go together, it will force your brain to think really hard. And if your brain is thinking really hard, hey presto, it will remember more. And that's brilliant, because I still only spend an hour revising, but I just remember much more of it because I've chosen different topics to revise in each of my 20 minutes. And so here is my handy mnemonic from the Learning Scientists. They're American. I don't think they know what this mnemonic means to English readers, but there you go. Hopefully that's given you a chuckle. But it just illustrates how you should split your topics up and keep revising them in a different order. And then this is an explanation of why it's so powerful. So you make links between different ideas as you switch between them. I don't know what the links will be between biology and English and maths, but your brain will find some, and that will make your revision much more powerful. So interleaving, split those topics up into different groups. Right, Another technique which is really powerful is elaboration. And now when you elaborate, you ask yourself questions. So if you're doing Macbeth, why does Macbeth stop sleeping with his wife? Why does Lady Macbeth kill herself? If you're doing an Inspector Calls, why does the inspector disappear so early on in the play? We look at the ending. Why do they get another phone call? Is it a real inspector or another hoax? Again, looking at the ending of the play, why doesn't Sheila keep turning down the ring? Why does she just say, no, it's too soon? Once you start asking yourself questions like this, your revision will be much more memorable, and at a deeper level you'll be able to answer things in a much more sophisticated way. And now, hopefully, with this figure, you can see why mind maps are so powerful, because mind maps give you the actual links between ideas, and you can work out why something is similar or different to something else, again, making it more memorable. Okay, then teachers are very bad at this. This is something I've got to get better at. But another way of elaborating is to relate it to your life experience. So maybe you're studying, I don't know, the angle of light in physics, and you want to understand how light works. You can relate it to the mirror in your bedroom. You know, why you look the way you do when you wake up and see yourself. Why we can't see our profiles properly. I don't know, why is our image reversed, or whatever the questions are, and you relate that to your own life. And the final thing I'm going to show you is dual coding theory, and this is really fascinating and links exactly to my YouTube videos or anyone else's YouTube videos that you watch. And the idea is that when you link words that you're hearing or seeing to something that's visual, your brain remembers more of it. Dual coding, dual means two, and obviously the coding is the verbal bit and the visual bit. So when you put those two together, you learn much more. So I recommend taking notes from videos as a brilliant way to revise. If you're lucky enough to have a school which subscribes to GCSE Pod, I really, really recommend them. So my previous school, we had 30,968 views of GCSE Pod in the year, and those students did fantastically well. Why? Well, I'm going to illustrate that with a video. For copyright reasons, I'm not actually going to play it yet on my PowerPoint slide. But I'm going to put a link up here, and it's Bad Lip Reading. These are hilarious videos if you've not seen them. Bad Lip Reading of Twilight. So this is what the video will look like. Bad Lip Reading presents Edward and Bella, a Bad Lip Reading of Twilight. 39 million views. Really, really hilarious. But that's not the reason I'm showing it to you. I'm showing it to you because I want to show how dual coding works. So if you go off and watch that video and then come back here, I've got a series of about 10 questions for you, like this one, what do mouses have? And you will remember, I guarantee you will remember what the answers are without even studying the video. Just watch it once, let it play all the way through, chuckle at the bits that you find funny, and then come back here and take the test. And that will prove to you how dual coding works and why you need to get hold of GCSE Pod, or why you should come back to my videos and get great success by studying early. Don't leave it to the last minute. And those are the ways you eat the elephant of revision. You end up remembering more by working less, by spreading out that revision over time in small 20-minute chunks. And that's where the elephant goes, 20 minutes at a time. Well, don't forget to subscribe if you want more, and if you don't want more, I think you're kidding yourself because you're still here and not many people make it to the end of a video. It means you're awesome. Thank you very much for watching. See you soon on my channel.